Hello everybody, I'm Coach Young. You've already learned the components of physical fitness: cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength, muscular endurance, flexibility, and body composition. What we're going to go through today are a few principles that will help you to improve on these components. The first principle that we'll talk about today is the law of progressive overload, or the overload principle as stated in your book. There are three areas involved in the law of progressive overload. The first area is intensity. The second of these is duration. And the third area of progressive overload is frequency. Now let's look at each of these areas of the law of progressive overload and explain what they mean. The first being intensity. In any type of workout program, your intensity level is determined by how hard you're working. If it were weight training, it would be the amount of weight you're lifting. If it's cardiovascular endurance, it's how hard your heart is beating or how fast your heart is beating. So intensity is how hard. We will look at this in just a moment when we talk about target heart rate zone and how to figure your target heart rate zone. The second of these principles, or the second area in this principle, is duration. Duration would be how long. Sticking with cardiovascular endurance, we can look at duration and how long you're going to work as being somewhere between 20 to 60 minutes. Intensity and duration work hand in hand. Obviously, the harder you're working, the less time you're going to spend doing it. If your intensity level is at a low 60% rate, then you're going to work a little bit harder. So duration and intensity work hand in hand. The third of these, frequency, being how often. How often just simply meaning how many days per week are we going to work out in our program. It's suggested that we go at least 3 to 5 times per week. Again, this may depend on intensity level. Once again, in the law of progressive overload, the three areas are intensity, duration, and frequency. How hard, how long, and how often. Looking at how hard, again, we want to go somewhere between 60 and 80% of our maximum heart rate if we're talking about cardiovascular endurance. How long? Anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes. And how often? 3 to 5 days per week. I hope this explains the law of progressive overload just a little bit. In your workout program, these are the three areas that you'll need to keep in mind when you do your assignment at the end of this unit. Now let's take a look at finding out how you're going to find your intensity level. We know we want to go between 60 and 80% of our maximum, and that's our heart rate. So let's find out what is that target heart rate zone where we know we can receive an exercise effect. If you remember reading in your chapter previously, exercise effect is that effect that you're going to get where the body increases when you increase one of those components of physical fitness. Let's look now at how to find your target heart rate zone. There are a number of formulas out there but some are very easy. And the one I'm going to show you is very easy. Finding your target heart rate zone. The first thing that I need to do is I need to find my maximum heart rate. This is very simple. This formula is just 220 minus your age. Gives you your maximum heart rate. Your maximum heart rate is that heart rate which you would never want to exceed when doing a workout program. The next thing that I have to take is maximum heart rate times 0.6 or 60%. This is going to give me the lower number in my target heart rate zone, my 60% level. For example, if you're 20 years old, to find your maximum heart rate, you're going to take 200 or 220 minus 20. So your maximum heart rate becomes 200. Now let's find the 60% intensity of 200. 200 times 0.6 equals 120. So in order to get an exercise effect in a cardiovascular endurance program, you would need to get your heart rate at least 120 beats per minute. Now let's find the 80% intensity level. Just like the 60%, I'm going to take my maximum heart rate times 0.8. This simply means that if I'm 20 years old and my maximum heart rate is 200, I'm going to multiply that by 0.8 or 80%, which should equal 160. I now have my target heart rate zone. My target heart rate zone being between 120 and 160 beats per minute. In order for me to get an exercise effect, if I'm 20 years old and I go and do a cardiovascular program, I want my heart beating for at least 20 to 60 minutes, somewhere between 120 and 160 beats per minute. I'm going to do this, if I'm looking at my progressive overload chart, I'm going to do this at least 3 to 5 times per week. In order to improve on a component, and I use the overload principle, that simply means that if I go out and exercise for 20 minutes with my heart rate at 120 3 days per week, I can do that over a period of time. My body will adapt. The components will adapt. In order to improve on that component of cardiovascular endurance, I've got to increase. I've got to overload. These 3 areas are where I will do my overload. I will increase to 4 times per week or 5 times per week. I would increase my duration. Instead of going 20 minutes, I may go 30 minutes. And the last area is I may increase my intensity. I would increase my intensity toward that 80% level, which would be closer to 160 beats per minute. As long as I can do these 3 things, I'm going to receive an exercise effect in any program that I do. And now for your assignment for Unit 6. I'm going to give you a scenario. You'll write back to me what your findings are. Walter is a 35-year-old man. He was very active in his early 20s. But over the last 10 years, Walter's gained about 20 pounds. His diet's pretty good. He eats a variety of foods, but he knows he needs to exercise. Walter has been to the doctor, and the doctor's cleared him to exercise. It is going to be your task to help Walter. He has come to you for help. Write out a prescription of exercise for Walter with an emphasis on cardiovascular endurance. Good luck.